So the black elected officials have come up with 3 broadband imperatives. I wish I could be savvy enough to say that I came up with that slogan, imperatives. But I'd like to share what those imperatives are and then just briefly just share the policy implications. So broadband imperative 1. Broadband must be brought directly to consumers, especially at public anchor institutions, community-based organizations, and with the home for increased productivity and mobility. In this recommendation, we are saying that broadband must be accessible and it must be local. And what do we mean by that? Well, you know, all of us in this room feel that we need to build the bandwidth of our libraries and our schools to be more competitive for this to work. In communities of color, we're also asking that we reach out to our churches, that we reach out to our barbershops and our beauty shops, and we find those places where people, the core and the essence of this report, are spending their time, are congregating. We are also asking, with broadband being local, that we look at the most incredible accelerator of broadband access today in this country, the home. I've seen it. At One Economy, we do list case studies in there. We saw 350,000 units of housing, affordable housing and public housing, take on the charge to bring broadband into the home. We are suggesting or recommending, as in this report, that no unit of new subsidized or affordable housing be built without a broadband connection. If you receive city, state, or federal dollars, the elected officials are requesting or recommending that there be some condition for broadband to the home. I'm going to go to the next slide for the sake of time. Broadband imperative 2. Broadband access must be coupled with relevant online content and digital literacy training that nurtures a culture of use among African Americans and helps people value broadband as an essential service that can improve lives. Here, my friends, broadband is cultural. It's local, but it's cultural. There's something about social networking and media sites that allow people to engage with other like-minded people, whether I'm a mom or whether I'm a knitter or whether I'm this or I'm that. Broadband is cultural. Is there something about adoption among African American communities that we're missing because of the cultural aspect that may be there? In this section, we talk about a couple of things. If broadband is local, you following me, and cultural, what can we actually do to ensure that we keep people online? We share several examples of public purpose media, like the Diary of the Single Mom that was created through some of the public purpose media that One Economy has created. We share other examples where it's gone down to the granular level of ensuring that it's written at a literacy level, a language where people can get access. We at the Joint Center are also very interested in partnering with groups like BET and other content providers that can help shape how we make it a cultural experience for users. In addition to that, when it's cultural, then you've got to have people who look like you help you, who are your neighbors, who are your trusted resources. I shared this with the FCC the other day, and I shared this at an FCC workshop, so Ralph, I think I can say it again.
I think you can.
It is on record. There is no excuse, and the elected officials believe this, that our young people that live in cities, whether rural or urban, are not engaged as service ambassadors in their neighborhoods. I was talking to someone who said, well, we do that, Nicole, we send them overseas. Let's keep them in the communities here in the States so that they can raise the bandwidth of grandmothers and pastors and teachers. Let's use them as connectors so that they can serve in that capacity, because I trust them when I come to my home. I know who their parents are. And young people get it. And so we've got to go, and I think Vanessa's example was perfect. It was 40 young people on Facebook, not 40 older people, and talking about issues. And then finally, imperative 3, and I'm just going to, Dave, you can hold off on the policy recommendations. This isn't a report. Sustainable broadband adoption efforts must be aligned with key areas such as education, healthcare, and employment that improve quality of life for African American consumers. You know, I'm preaching to the choir, but I want to summarize this as broadband is purposeful. We've got to figure out, as a nation, what are the verticals that we're interested in? Do we want to increase the well-being? You know, African Americans are at the highest risk of disease. We're at the highest risk of preventable disease, lifestyle diseases. We are most likely to not ask doctors questions when we're sitting in the room. We live in neighborhoods where clinics are not equipped to deal with the basic essence of questions like asthma. Have you ever wondered why African American kids in urban areas are more prone to asthma? We don't have the information. In addition to that, when it comes to employment, I know Robert Steele is very much involved with this as well. African American communities have other social challenges like ex-offender reentry, other challenges of being de-skilled, needing retraining. How come we can't think of ways, and it's in our report, or recommendations, again, to go granular enough to make it purposeful for those populations? In terms of education, our young people, I was at a panel recently at my old college who was talking about STEM competitiveness. And the common theme that struck me from one of the presenters, public school students, particularly those from inner city schools, get exposed to math and science by the time they're in junior high school. They are less likely to have the basic components of success, geometry, algebra, etc. And I thought back, we're not training up, in general, a population, because all of us know about our global competitiveness, right? And what we've got to do more in our educational systems. But we're leaving behind generations that cannot break the trajectory of poverty if they're not exposed to educational resources up front. We have made recommendations throughout this report to figure out ways to be creative and innovative, that we can extend benefits from E-rate programs and universal service and find ways to change outdated standards so that we can get teachers to actually want to teach this, that we don't have the shortage of teachers in inner city schools that are not as knowledgeable as these areas that are going to create the barrier or the unintended consequence of people being left behind. So we offer in the report that recommendation. Many recommendations, as you read this report, have been offered, and in no way do we purport as a coalition, as a caucus of people, to say that we were creative in some parts. In some ways, we're reiterating and stressing what we like, and we're also posing new opportunities for discussion. And so we present this report to you all today, and just go to the last slide, Dave, to say to you, one, it's online. Oh, not that slide, go back up one. One, it's online. We also have hard copies. But we want you to leave this conversation today with two things in the back of your head. It's all about people. It's about people. And it's about the investment in the human and social capital of tomorrow. And two, it's all about voice. And who is closer to the voice than elected and appointed officials that deal with the day-to-day issues, from my sewage to my electricity to my parking? Now, what about my broadband? And if we get to that level after this process is done, where more and more constituents are wanting and requesting that, then we've done our job. But if we get to that point where there are still people being left behind, that North Carolina has the same statistics, and people in certain large cities still cannot access the verticals that come with broadband, then we have failed. And so we present that to you today, that they want a seat at the table. And this is the beginning of an ongoing series of conversation that we hope will begin to put some more pages in the book. So I already told John, we're filling up the pages. We're not writing the Pew Bible, but we're doing like the translation of another version to ensure that the story is complete.